Let me tell you about a conversation that went sideways. Early in my career as a manager, I had a team member who kept derailing our meetings. He would cut people off, go off topic, and I could see the rest of the team was starting to disengage. So I pulled him aside and I said, "Hey, I just feel like you need to be more aware of the energy in the room." He nodded and said, "Of course, totally." And then he did exactly the same thing the next week. Does that sound familiar? The problem wasn't that I gave feedback. The problem was that my feedback was too vague to be actionable. It was more about feelings than facts, and it gave him nothing specific to actually change. Today, I'm going to share the framework that transformed the way I give feedback, and I've used it across many, many teams in the US, Poland, and India. It's called the SBI Model. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to use it and how not to use it, which honestly matters just as much. There are 3 reasons feedback fails, and I've personally committed all 3 of them. Failure mode number 1, too vague. You need to communicate better, or your work isn't quite meeting the bar. I just need you to be more of a team player. Those statements sound like feedback, but they're not. They're judgments without evidence. The person receiving them doesn't know how to change, when the issue happened, or how it affected anyone. They're left guessing or getting defensive. Failure mode number 2, too personal. You're always so negative in meetings. You just don't seem motivated lately. The moment that feedback starts with a character judgment like you are, you've lost them. Nobody can hear development feedback when they're busy defending who they are as a person. Failure mode number 3, bad timing. I once gave feedback to a colleague right before a big client presentation. She was already anxious. She walked into the room rattled and the presentation suffered. Feedback needs the right container. Enough time, enough privacy, and enough safety. SBI stands for Situation Behavior Impact. It was developed by the Center for Creative Leadership, and it's become my go-to framework for giving feedback. Feedback that's clear, fair, and actually leads to change. Here's how it works. Situation. Anchor the feedback in a specific time and place. Not you always or you never, but during Tuesday's team meeting, or when you submitted the Q3 report last Friday. This immediately removes ambiguity and shows you're dealing in facts, not feelings. B is for behavior. Describe the observable behavior, what you saw or heard, not what you interpreted, not what you think it means about them as a person, just the behavior. You interrupted 3 people before they finished their sentences. That's a behavior. You were rude. That's a judgment. I is for impact. Share the effect of that behavior. This is where you make it real. The impact was that 2 people stopped contributing for the rest of the meeting, and we didn't get to the agenda items 3 and 4. Now they understand why it matters. Here are 3 real examples. The meeting interrupter. The meeting interrupter, I've actually lived this one. I'd been leading a cross-functional team, and we had a team member, brilliant, passionate, but unaware of his impact in group settings. Without SBI, the feedback would have been, I need you to be more aware in meetings, which is vague, but nothing changes. With SBI is, in yesterday's product reviews, you spoke over Priya and Marcus before they finished their points 3 separate times. The impact was that they both went quiet for the rest of the session, and we lost 2 perspectives we really needed to make a good decision. It's the same person and the same issue, but just a completely different conversation and a completely different outcome. Example number 2, the missed deadline. This one happens all the time. Someone misses a deadline and we either let it slide or we go in hot. Without SBI, the feedback would have been, you're not reliable, this keeps happening. which is personal, vague, and now they're defensive. With SBI, on Thursday, the client brief was due at 9 a.m. I received it at 2 p.m. with no advanced communication. Because of that, the client rescheduled our call and flagged their concern to my director. Now you've given them something they can work with. And here's what I always add after the SBI. Help me understand what happened on your end, because sometimes there's context you don't have. Example number 3 would be to use SBI for positive feedback. Yes, it can work both ways. SBI isn't just for problems. One of the most powerful uses is reinforcing behavior you want to see more of. Without SBI, it would be, great job this week. That's nice, but they don't know what to repeat. With SBI, it would be, in the client call this morning, when the client pushed back hard on pricing, you paused, acknowledged their concern, and then walked them through the ROI data calmly. The client's whole tone shifted, and they ended up the call asking to move forward. That was exceptional. The person will absolutely do that again, and they'll know exactly what they did. Here's some common mistakes even when using SBI. Even when people learn to use SBI, there are some traps I see leaders falling into. I know because I've fallen into them too. Mistake number 1 is sneaking judgment into the behavior step. You aggressively interrupted. It's not a behavior description. Aggressive is an interpretation. Stick to observable facts. Mistake number 2 is vague impact. It made people uncomfortable, is weak. Whereas 2 team members came to me separately afterwards and said they were hesitant to speak up in future meetings, is specific and real. Mistake number 3 is feedback dumping. Giving 5 SBI feedbacks in one sitting is overwhelming. Pick the most important one. Quality over quantity, always. Mistake number 4 is skipping the dialogue. SBI is an opening, not a monologue. After you deliver, stop talking and invite their perspective. What's your take on this? I'd love to hear how that situation felt from your side. Great feedback is a conversation. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Feedback is one of the greatest gifts you can give someone you lead. When it's done well, it's an act of genuine care. It says, I see you, I believe in your potential, and I'm invested enough to have this conversation. The SBI framework gives you the structure to make that happen. Clearly, fairly, and in a way the other person can actually hear. Try it this week. Pick a conversation you've been putting off and use the SBI model. See what happens. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe. I'm going to be sharing these practical tips and leadership tools often from my years of experience leading teams across cultures and navigating real workplace conflict. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the hardest feedback conversation you've ever had to have? I read every single one. See you again soon.